Whew. What is up, guys? Hit that multi-quarter, get going. Um, Guys, we're gonna get deep today. So I've had a talk with a few people, well, two people over the last day, um, and it seems to be a reoccurring thing to me that faith is like such a big part of just anything in life, like entrepreneurship, especially, but like relationships, happiness, like everything. It all stems from faith. And that's what people don't get. And it's so hard to see people struggle, for me especially, because it's like people often correlate faith with going to church. And it's super interesting because like obviously I was raised in Mormon culture in Utah, and like the way that people think faith, it like people think that faith is showing up to church on Sunday and listening to what the prophet says and eating your bread, taking your sacrament every week and reading your scriptures. But guys, that's not faith. Like what that is that is showing up and fall, like that's obedience. That's not faith. What faith is what you do outside church, right? It's the actions you take after you do those things, right? So, and that's the difference, guys, because faith is an action word. Like, faith needs to be put in action. Faith is not something that you learn about, it's not something that you sit back and study, it's something that you do. And that's what people don't understand is like, like people will go to church every Sunday and they go take their sacrament and stuff, but then on the flip side, they're too scared to leave that job that they hate that's been making them miserable for the last 20 years. They're too scared to start the business. They're too scared to actually believe in themselves and do the things that actually take faith. So so this is the thing, and this is where it's interesting. This is going to get weird. People may think I'm like crazy or whatever. I'm used to it. It's fine. But this is where I really like to subscribe to Buddhist philosophy, in the sense that, in the sense that, like God is not separate from us, right? And it's interesting because the way that I see it, like I think everything, like I see all religions as the same, right? I look at different religions and I try to find the similarities because that's what helps me piece together like the truth, right? I try to find the little bits of truth in each one that I can implement. And one thing that's been interesting for me being raised Mormon was like the the way that people look at it is that God is separate from us, right? God's like the guy up there that he's there to like, give us revelation, but if we don't listen, he's also there to punish us. And so this is where like I like to kind of subscribe to the Buddhist philosophy of like God and us, like we are God, right? Like the way that we view ourselves is the way that we will view God. So therefore, if we are very critical of ourselves, God will be very critical of us. And this is why like in my head it makes more sense because then it just really emphasizes the power that we have as people, as humans. Because like in the Book of Mormon talks about it, the Bible talks about how we can all be gods one day, and like, and oh sheesh, I did my 50 push-ups and I'm like still recovering a little bit. But um so my point being that I like to see God as self, and I like to practice that because, with that being said, like that gives me more power, and it also emphasizes the fact that I need to be more, or I guess less critical of myself, right? Because there is no, like, the reality is there is no right or wrong. You're not going to be punished. Like you may, excuse me, you may have results as a of your actions, but you're not going to be punished. Like there's no, the way that I like to explain this is like as a father or as a parent, you have a 2-year-old, right? And the 2-year-old does something that you don't like whatever, they hit their friend and their friend's crying. What do you do? Like, what's the smart way to handle that situation? Like, you can go up and whack the kid, but what does that teach them? It literally doesn't like correlate in their head. So what I've found to be a more effective way is you go up and you just um, explain to them, like, hey, that's your friend. You don't want to hurt them. Like, look, you hurt them. If you keep hurting your friends, you're not going to have friends. So we need to make sure that we're not hurting our friends so that we can have friends, and like, and if you say that enough, they'll learn that. So with that being said, it's not about punishing, it's about teaching, right? And anyways, the way that, so to come back to the whole Buddhist philosophy thing is like, there is no wrong, right? Like if you get fired or you make a wrong decision or whatever, you don't need to punish yourself for that. And the crazy part is like the majority of people live in that space of like, oh, well, I messed up and I'm a failure. And then they hold on to that their whole lives. But if you can just simply, and this is one thing, I went to this personal development retreat a while back, but the way that they look at it, the way that they kind of reframed the way that I look at things is it it's not right or wrong. It's, is it working or is it not working, right? And so when we identify things as not working, then we can change them. But if it's wrong, we just leave it, and it's just, that's what it is. So anyways, I think that, I mean, it's my personal belief that like all religions have some truth in them. I personally I practice the LDS faith. Like I still go to church, I still take the sacrament. That's what I subscribe to more than anything, but I do like studying different religions. And and the interesting thing for me, and this may not be something that like, it's interesting because people will always tell you like, go study other religions and stuff, but nobody does it. Like that's the funny part, is nobody actually does it. So the interesting thing for me was like, the more that I went out and I studied other religions, the deeper my faith in the LDS religion became. And so people always say like, you're like, I don't know, I've heard it all, being raised in a Mormon family. Like people think I'm weird, they think that I'm this and that, and the reality is I'm just a whole lot more open-minded than they are. And the crazy part is like, I've been able to study those religions, and then like in my head it bridges the gap between like, well, in my head it helps me find truth, and then I can link that back to um like what I believe. Like I have a better idea of what I believe, and that's, and anyways, my point being, faith, right? So to go back to the beginning, right? Faith, guys. Faith is needed for anything that you're going to do in this life. Like it's one of the main things, because there are going to be situations where you have to put yourself out on that limb, and you have to believe that you're going to come out on top. And that's what entrepreneurship is. Like that's what progression is. Like that's what posting on social media and showing, like flying across the world and like doing all the things that you need to do. Like it's simply putting yourself in those situations where you're out on a limb and believing that it's going to work for you. And the more and more that you put yourself on that limb, the more comfortable you get being there. And that's what people don't understand, is they want to go, like, people will say, I want to make $1 million, right? But then, excuse me, people will say they want to make $1 million, but then they start freaking out about $1,000 investment that they have to make in their business. And it's like, well, you realize to make $1 million, like the majority of people would spend one to $400,000 just on like building, like getting the product or building the way for them to make $1 million, right? Like nobody's just gonna like, you're not just gonna make $1 million from zero value, right? So what you do is you spend money and you get the product or whatever the thing is, you develop the product, you market the product so that there is perceived value, and then you sell it, and say you make $1.4 million. Well, cool. Now you made $1 million, but it took you that upfront investment of 1 to 400,000. And that's what people don't get. So everybody just wants to skip to that $1 million step, but the reality is they won't even invest the initial $1,000. So it's like, how do you expect to make $1 million if you won't even invest the initial $1,000? And that's just how it is. Like, that's how business ownership is. Like, you have to be willing to put yourself in those situations where you go out on a limb and things work out. Things have to work out, and if they're not working out, then you have to make them work. So, and to link this back to spirituality, religion, right? That's geez, I got like my lips like peeling. But to link that back to religion, that's why I say faith is an action that you take. Like, faith is an action word. Whereas people will go to church for 30 years and then claim that they have faith, but the reality is, like, they haven't taken a step, like they haven't bet on themselves at all, and they've stayed in the exact same position. So, and if anything, the more you get to know God, the more that you'll realize he wants you to go out and make an impact in the world. He wants you to go out on that limb, and the more you go out on that limb, the more he's going to reward you for it. So it's just simply that you have to exercise your faith. And like I said, there's levels to it, guys. Like, you have to front the initial investment, and then you have to get that return, and then you have to front more, and then you have to get that return, and then you have to front more. And eventually you're at this point where it's like, well, I want to make $1 million. Cool. Well, here's a check for 400K. Let's get product. Let's get marketing. Let's hire people, and let's make $1 million. Right? Like, you have to be willing to let go in order to get. Like, that's a universal principle. You have to give in order to get. So, so that's my idea of faith, guys. And like I said, I've studied a lot of religions, and like, it always just kind of comes back to like I think every religion has the truth, but I think that the people or the culture is what kind of twists things. So if you can look at the lessons and look at the principles of each religion and just take it for what it's worth, the crazy part is, like, you'll see they're all the exact same. They're all preaching the same exact thing. So, anyways, guys, take action. Like, that's the entire point of this podcast. Like, just go out and take action. Like, whatever that thing, like, this is where, like, your gut feeling is the authentic voice of God. And the majority of people don't know how to listen to that. So have that gut feeling, pay attention to it, acknowledge it, and then go take action, whatever that is. Like, and that's the authentic voice of God. Like, that's what you need to do. And that's why I said, we had a podcast like a few episodes ago, and that's why I said I feel like the natural state of man is rich. The natural state of man is successful and powerful and impactful. And that's simply because there is no fear and doubt clouding his vision. And so, with that being said, like, if you can simply just have faith and trust in God and, like, know that things are going to work out, eventually with time they will. And that's the natural state of man. Like, if you are overthinking, if you are falling into doubt and fear and, like, all that stuff, that's not, like, that's literally Satan. That's what they teach Satan is, like, fear, doubt, shame. So you're going against the natural state. Like, the way that God made you is to be successful, is to be competent, is to be powerful. And you just have to remember that. And, like, I feel that the more and more that I continue moving forward, and the more and more I get rid of my doubts and my fears, and I'm taking action, the more I just have those like epiphanies of like, oh yeah, that's why that was supposed to happen. Like that's why I did that. And at the time when I do things, like a lot of the time it doesn't make sense, but it's just a gut feeling. Um, so guys, with that being said, like take that for what it's worth. Guys, faith is an action. So start taking action on those gut feelings, and it may feel impulsive, it may feel crazy. Like there have been multiple times throughout this journey that I've thought I was absolutely crazy, and everybody around me thought that as well. But I just felt this urge to go change and go do, like, go experience things and bet on myself and believe that things would work, and they do. It's just simply that you have to follow that road long enough. And a lot of the time things start to connect. So so excuse me. So if there's anything that I can leave you with, it's that, guys, faith is not showing up to church. It's not reading your scriptures. What it truly is it's celebrating, and this is what I like to think of it as, but it's celebrating your spirituality, right? So what's the thing that brings you peace, right? Because that's what spirituality is in essence. It's the thing that brings you peace. Whether that's going up in the mountains, whether that's riding horses, whether that's going to the gym, going to church, traveling, like, sit back and ask yourself that. And then on top of that, the way that I look at religious text is more the history of man, and it's super cool because you can go back and you can learn about these different people. You can learn about the Buddha, you can learn about Nephi, you can learn about Moses, right? And you can almost piece together the history of like what happened thousands of years ago. And it's super cool because then you can kind of pinpoint revelation and, anyways, my point being, find the thing that brings you peace and just go all in to it. Like, allow yourself to have that peace and allow yourself to study and be intrigued and like be interested in that thing, and if it sparks your curiosity, then there's no downside to that. You may go out and whatever, like you may go out and figure out that you don't want to be a part of it or whatever the thing is, but in the end it's all just learning experiences. And that's why I say, like, the more I study Buddhism, the more I've like been around and seen different cultures, the more that I've come to believe in the LDS religion, and I've come full circle to what my parents have told me. But I'm just not the type of person to take somebody else's word for it. Like, I have to build myself. Like, I have to build my own faith. I have to build my own business. I'm not going to go ride off the coattails of everybody else. So that's just the type of person I am, and it makes things a whole lot harder for sure. Like, I don't know, it does make things a whole lot harder, but at the same time I have a much better appreciation for the things that I have, simply because I have built it from nothing and it's all my own personal experience. So anyways, guys, faith is an action word, and I'm going to continue going back to that, guys. Listen to the voice, or listen to that gut feeling, listen to the voice in your head, and go take action and believe that it's going to work. And I promise you, guys, like, I promise you, you'll look back in a few years and you'll be like, dang, I can't believe like the crazy chain of events that happened to get me here. Like look at my life. My life is a testament of that. Like, I got divorced, dropped out of school, and quit my job all in the matter of like 2-3 weeks. I moved out of my hometown and had this urge to go compete. So what I did was I became a trainer, started competing. 3 years later, made it to Natural Olympia, ran into Nevaeh and her family. We ended up getting married 2 years later. Now I'm here in Arizona. Like, it's literally crazy. And that's like the simplified version of it, but it's literally crazy that like me and her were able to like meet and and all that stuff, but you find the right people along the way. So if you continuously act with faith and you continuously move forward into that, one, you will find yourself in the right places, but two, you'll find the right people. And then three, what will happen is you'll have those people to carry you through the hard times, and it will make, like, you'll have this momentum where even if you start to doubt yourself, like, I don't doubt myself anymore. But even if I did, I've got a team of people behind me, and I've got a stack of undeniable proof that I'm doing big things. And I've got my wife, like I've got her family and my family, like I have so many people that help carry me through the fear and the doubt and stuff. And I know that they're always going to be there for me. So with that being said, I'm more and more willing to take those big risks and make the upfront investment so that I can double, triple, quadruple my money. And it's all just a product of faith. And like I always say money because that's the way that we quantify things. Like it makes it easy to quantify in your head, but like that's the reality of it. Like, so my point being, just act with faith, guys. Follow that voice. Like that is the authentic voice. Um, like I always say, your natural state is success. Your natural state is influence and power and becoming who you want to be. That's your natural state. And the more doubt and more fear you face, like you are just trying to hold yourself back from the greatness that you have to give to the world. So stop holding yourself back. Like everything that you need is within you. So just drop the ego and let it happen. And we will catch you guys on the next one, guys. Have a good rest of your day. Act with faith and just see what happens. Like trust yourself, trust me, go see what happens, and I promise it'll work out.